And we come back with Celnazor and we
Global Vision.
Global Vision, and Celnazor in Russian and Global Vision in English. Ilya. So you found us some nice pictures on rotundas and teleports.
Everyone can find many pictures. It's like lighthouses. It's everywhere, made of stone, perfectly masonry, perfect masonry everywhere. In remote places, distant places, the same technology everywhere. Like this one, for example. This in many different places, but they have domes, they have columns with the same design, actually, the same emitters. They look like flowers, but it's emitters. It's definitely free energy devices, and they had some equipment, because in all pictures we can see some equipment built, installed inside of them, and they look the same in all cultures everywhere, in China, in Russia, in Siberia, Siberian part of Russia, European part of Russia, Australia, and so on. Of course, USA, it's like Arch de Triomphe. The same arches were everywhere. In every single city of Russia, we had 3 or 4 of them. Later, they were destroyed. The same technology, arches de Triomphe, so-called huge arches, with some rotundas on top, with some domes on top, and so on. The same technology, the same emitters inside on sailings, also were teleports. But this rotunda were teleports just for people like us, for single people, not for huge lines of people like military troops and so on. So everyone can see. I'm sure everyone can understand that it has some common sense. It makes sense, some of my words, and I am ready for any dialogue, any dispute, any dialogue with any person who has different opinion. You're welcome. Tell me that I'm wrong, really. In my video I explain how it works, what technology was used, and what kind of coil was underneath this dome and so on. Because technology is the same everywhere, all over the world. We had one global civilization with a high level of technologies we cannot even dream about today. Philip?
Okay, and can you show anything? Like, can you screen share?
Sure. I actually thought I did. What do you see, Philip?
Yeah, I see myself right now.
What do you see now?
I see your...
Any photos?
Yes.
At last. That's a typical type of rotunda. I thought I was showing something. Old rotundas all over the world, actually. There's this one in India, in Greece, in Australia, with the same antenna on top. It's definitely free energy devices, and they are on remote places. Some of them in good condition today, some of them not, but just to give you some brief idea what I'm talking about. Yeah, this type. They had waveguides and so on, columns. The same technology everywhere.
Well, we're probably talking about the old ones. The new ones are definitely just, the cargo cooled.
Exactly, they were restored, but look at this one, for example. Huge one. Or this one.
I'm just, trying to correct this because there's plenty of guys that trying to debunk what we're trying to talk about, and they're like, picking our words and saying, oh, they saying like, and they showing you the new house like that was built in 20th century and saying, look, it also has the mud flooded windows. How can it be? And so trying to question. I say, why don't you prove it on the house that was built in 18th century or maybe the beginning of 19th century?
All over the world.
No, I don't hear you. I don't hear you. I've proved you're wrong, and I don't hear you. That's what they do. So it's like they read the Wikipedia and say like, oh, this is rotunda, and what it says, and they read exactly what's written in Wikipedia about rotunda. Say, you guys are wrong. Look at this. I proved you wrong. It's amazing, of course.
I know
Ridiculous.
this Australian guy, and I know who you. What do you mean?
And
What are you talking about?
well, yeah.
I
Don't-
guess so.
It's probably him.
When I just started with my channel, and he also visited and wrote some comments, really stupid comments, you know.
Well,
Now, of course, he doesn't even come and write any comments because, you know, it's useless. Recently, I was even on Nepal. It's, you know, 3 kilometers on top, you know, somewhere in mountains, on high mountains, and there are also many traces of mud flood. There are also some palaces, European style, and statues of, you know, like Caucasian, or how to say, white woman. I mean, white race woman and so on, everywhere. So we had global civilization living everywhere, using the same technology, the same architecture, and all this bullshit of official narratives, official story, saying that British built everything in 19th century. Come on. I cannot imagine what amount of people was needed to build everything. Bridges, railway stations, trains and so on, railways actually by itself, palaces all over the world, the same style with domes and everything. It's a complete nonsense what they're saying. I'm not buying any official bullshit. Look at this beauty. Look at this beauty. The same. What for? Just to, you know, cover some few people from the rain? I don't think so. With this perfect dome, do you see it, Philip? What I'm
Yeah.
showing? With this base reflex systems, with this ARFA, I think it's ARF for playing music, but it's a symbol of sound, because Rotonda were using sound frequencies for teleportations. This is perfect. I will even save it. I will save it for my future purposes.
it's a copyrighted image. Deposit photos, it says.
I don't give a shit. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Really, I'm not making any money. I refused my monetization, so just to save some time and
Monetization
energy of people.
won't help you to make money. You know, I showed how much did this channel earned for 3 years, and it's like ridiculous numbers. So, I mean, the only YouTubers that make money on YouTube are those who get the advertisements bought directly from the advertiser, or those
Yeah, probably
those who have like millions of views per
million
day.
of views. Yes, some
Yeah.
channels have millions. You know.
Yeah, millions of monetized views, because not like 40% of the views are only monetized. So it's like if you have 2.5 million views, you probably have $1,000 in Russia for this
Yeah,
content.
1 million is about 1,000. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like in USA you would have like $4,000 for the same content.
Good for USA and advertisers of USA. But you know, it's a little bit ridiculous to have the same design everywhere in remote places. I have pictures of, you know, one of the perfect depictions of civil war or civil war in USA. I saw some rotondas like this standing, you know, in the field, mud flooded rotondas in the middle of nowhere. No roads, nothing. Who could build it, you know? People were starving, people were fighting, and they say that they were building at the same time, you know. Having gun in one hand, shooting, and having chisel.
Yeah, there's a bunch of anomalies in
something.
construction of 19th century. I mean, what I'm stuck on it exactly, then you see some, you know, architectural beauty, and you don't have the actual construction footage. You only have it like
Yes.
built, and I mean, this is ridiculous.
Sometimes destroyed some domes were damaged, destroyed, and they reconstructing it, refurnishing, but no photos of construction.
Yeah, like we have
You're
this
right.
famous Bolshevik factory, the Konditerskaya Fabrika Bolshevik.
Mhm.
It's on Leningradsky Prospect in Moscow. And it's like I'm walking around and I see totally excavated first floor, and below that they have a basement with the parking.
Mm-hmm.
And when I hear this version about the basements, um, I would say like yes, you could have a basement with a narrow window on the top of this, like like a semi window, like a small window, right? And it's okay. But if you walk inside and see that this is a bricked up window, that was a regular size window, and
Yes.
right now it's bricked up and it's like 80% buried,
Sometimes it's two
uh,
floors and
and you
walls.
have a basement below that level,
Exactly.
and you maybe have a basement below that level again, like a
Yeah.
parking or something. And then you ask like, what year is this construction? And they say like, oh, it's 18th century, and we totally, pull
19th
all the guts
century.
from.
It's
Yeah, it's like
19
18.
most of
Yeah,
cases.
they say 18. That
Yeah.
that that, that particular case with the parking.
Yeah.
I ask like, uh, when it was reconstructed, what years? Like 90s, when they had like mayor of Moscow, whose last name was Lushkov,
Mm-hmm.
and what they did is they pulled out everything and left only the walls of the perimeter
Mm-hmm.
and the inside also. And I say like, so what are they scratched to the bottom? He said no, the bottom was totally cemented because you cannot go further because they have like undergrounds below and all this area is connected. So I said, well, very interesting information you just told me. And it's like totally discredits the explanation of the basement itself, because
Exactly.
if you have the basements below the basements below the basements,
It's strange.
and all of them have the windows that are right now bricked up, uh, go ahead and ask yourself, is this really a basement?
And I start to make some research of Russian subway, metro, underground, and some of the stations looks like temples, ancient temples and churches, Gothic style and so on. But most of them have another station under this station, so it was like two ways traveling, not two ways, one left, second right, like modern type. I think they both were one way, and beneath them it was a second station going different direction. At least Moscow Circle, all of them have a second station under the ground. Under the first one, under the one we are using.
Yeah,
I was shocked.
remember the fantastic movie about Alisa that was in Russian, Alisa Selezneva, when she had like a guy Kolya who went to the
Guest from the
basement.
future, we call it. Yeah.
We call it guest from the future, and they had a basement in some old building, and that basement all had like these columns and stuff like this. It was like
Exactly.
semi-antique
And then
style.
like Rotonda, yes.
Yeah, and it was like some entrance and a teleport or something. Like
Yeah.
you stand there, like press the button, press the year you want to go, and you go. So it's like the similar idea with these teleport stations. And what I was trying to research when I was doing it, those small cabins that you have inside the churches, and they look like a teleport devices when you like step into this,
Exactly. That's what I
and
mean.
you
Yes.
disappear. Like
Yes.
you close the door, like and it's called sig in Russian. In Russian fairy tales, it's called sigать, or
Yes.
and
It's like
that
jumping.
could explain the travels of the heroes of Russian fairy tales, the so-called 27th Earth, like 3 земель, right? 27th Earth, like 9 times 3 Earth. So it's like maybe they like circles of
Earth
Earth.
is not very correct because we have different writing. You know, Earth means that's
Well, they
like
call it also Earth.
planet, space. Earth, it
Not
doesn't
the
matter, yeah.
planets. I mean Earth. Only Earth.
Земля,
Yeah,
yes.
Земли. It's like Midgard Earth and maybe some other Earth, Asgard Earth, and stuff like this. So they had like 9 times 3. It's like 27th circle of Earths, and they could travel it from the places there where they were living. So it's like very interesting. So they had some
And
devices.
they explain different Earths. I mean, with 2 suns, for example, 3 moons, and so on. Different color of grass.
Yeah, the
trees
picture
and
is
so on.
different, and every time you have some different species there, maybe some different adventures, different scenarios and stuff.
But this all was recorded in fairy tales in 19th century. You know,
Yeah,
how people
all
could imagine
fairy tales.
space and all science fiction and so on.
Yeah, all the fairy tales
Strange.
were edited in 19th century, and right
Doctor,
now we see only some interpreted commentary of some editors of 19th century, those
Yes.
black suit guys, black hat guys, hidden hand guys that were editing shit everywhere. And the terminology censorship in Russian literature started exactly at the same time. It was like 1816, 1815, like after the Napoleon War, when the nobility was trying to make some revolutionary changes, like changing monarchy and stuff like this. And those December people, December nobility, was
It's
also connected
fake.
to
Also fake, yes.
Mason lodge that was in Russia, was controlling all these revolutions. And so they started to make censorship. On every literature book was supposed to be published only after censor.
Exactly. Censorship was global. I'm
law.
sorry, Philip. It's
I mean,
everywhere.
I'm talking what I researched about Russia.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like it wasn't in other countries. Probably the same system was everywhere, because
The
all
same
those
shit, yeah.
revolution started in the end of 18th century, starting with French Revolution and then Napoleon Wars, and all. We fall back to the 1816 when he was already on the Helena island, locked there. So, I mean, this is the same period of time, and it's the beginning of the time when all those anomalies start to grow,
Yeah.
and exponentially. And we see the reference to the flood word, and the floodings, and the post-flood and pre-flood. The terminology of a pre-flood starts in Russian literature exactly in the 19th century, and people were mentioning like pre-flood times, pre-flood people, pre-flood
Like something
clothes.
primitive, yes,
Yeah,
yes. But in
and-
reality, it was different.
And it was like interpreted right now like it was primitive, but maybe they meant
It's something old,
else.
yes. It's very pre-flood.
Yeah,
time,
because
yes.
the censorship could control the definitions, right?
They even pervert, they change the definition and understanding of many words, like, even in English, the captain. What is tain in English? What is cap? Cap, something to cover. Tain is amalgama, is mercury with some metal, tin or zinc, yeah? And this amalgam was making free energy for everyone. And now it's a secret. Now we're saying captain. It's a person. Before Mudflat, it was a person who was in charge for this bunch of mercury. How to
I
say
think,
cans?
if we go through Russian, we hear the word kapitan. Kapitan, right?
Exactly, but we have taina. Tain in French and in English, tain. Tain is amalgam. Taina. And it was secret later. This
I
mix
mean-
was
I mean,
secret later.
The kapitan in Russian is similar to kapital. Kapital means,
Also,
what's
capital was this captain. Yes, cap to cover and the stain.
So the same pronunciation, the same you know, same thing. So it's like only one letter changes, and
Yes,
all the
we
captains
all
get their
had,
capitals. So, right?
yeah, we all had one language, then it was changed, perverted, and so on. Distorted, completely distorted by somebody, and we made a bunch of languages actually with the same root.
Yeah, following back to the information about the construction of Moscow subway, as what I've seen, those 32 brave men that started excavating the tunnels of so-called previous pre-flood subway, and they only got the equipment only in 1935, only 3 years after they started the work. So 3 years they were what they were doing. They were walking around the Moscow and finding those tunnels, and so they can build a map or track the actual
But
pathway.
they knew everything. Come on, about subway
No,
pipes and so on.
it was somewhere. It was like, it was buried by the flow, and so you
Yeah,
had to excavate the entrances because the tunnels were
yeah,
safe, but the entrances are those, stations, the future stations that we have right now. So it's like they supposed to be moved from the churches, right? From all those
exactly. And church
construction,
was
because
again the official
yeah,
church,
because
and
you cannot, you use the previous one, so the people won't figure out what the hell was going on. So you have to build all new entrances, and those entrances also look like, sometimes they look like palaces, right, in Moscow.
yes.
So I mean,
But it's old. It's still old buildings with already built-in entrances to underground,
yeah,
and
it's all stone masonry there, right? It's all
exactly,
granite. It's all
it's
like,
made of granite.
so where
It
did they
wasn't
take
possible.
all those
Exactly.
equipment? So
How
it's
they
like,
cut with statues
yeah,
and
it's
so.
like impossible to do it in such short period to build such beautiful stations, right? So
Exactly.
probably they had all this material stolen from the previous station, right? All those columns probably were spare parts from those unequipped stations, and they just, moved the equipment and the material and the decoration panels and all this stuff to the new ones. And this makes sense because nobody saw actually like huge amount of work going on up there. So you have to make supplies and stuff like this. So you have to make engage a lot of people in supplying all this work. But if you have it underground and you just move from place to place, it's okay, and it's easily, could be explained that they
Do
had.
you see what I'm trying to show you?
Yeah, we see this. Yeah.
For example, this one. Okay, but maybe this one is nothing special.
People, we're talking about the 1930s, guys, when we had already
Exactly.
photographs in each and every hands. So, and
Look,
there's
it's
a
one of the
movie.
first entrance. It
Yeah.
looks like rebuilt rotonda, something like that.
Yeah, it's Arbatskaya, I guess, right? It's this is Kropotkinskaya. Yeah, the design is still the same. So this is how they could possibly adopt the previous
For
materials to the
example,
new
this one.
design.
This one. I'm not gonna buy the bullshit that those emitters or this style, Gothic style, with it look like temple, underground temple.
Yeah,
It
this
was
is
built in
what
1930s. Kurskaya.
yeah, it's a second line. The first one is Sokolnichskaya, it's the red one. You start with it.
Sokolniki. Yeah, just
Yeah.
a second. I can
And
show.
this is the second one. The second one was built in the 40s, and the first one was built in 30s. It's like record time in building the subway.
Look, Kievskaya. Kiev.
Yeah, this is the station I'm using the most because I live here. Kievsky is like a huge town.
Look,
Yeah, this is Prospect Mira.
but there are many of them like this style.
So what I'm trying to say, people, they could be using the old equipment, old material to reconstruct this design.
Just look this.
And
how they did it. I'm sorry, but this lighting, that's definitely free energy because they have this противовес, counterweight. I made a video about it, and just no way they could do all these carvings. For example, this. Do you see how they did it for lighting device? It's made of marble, granite, marble.
It's all composed panels, so it's like it's a production. It's not a hand job.
Look, like the seats. It's made of one solid block and monolith of marble. How they did it?
It's not a manual job. It's like
yes. They didn't have such equipment to do everything like this. Look at this. How they possibly do it? You know, even today, it looks like, you know, temples.
Yeah, have you seen the new stations they're opening right now?
It's piece of shit, really. I mean, design is like, look, there is nothing about communism and so on. It looks like temple. All Russian subway like this. I will make a video about it. Please wait a little bit. I'm not allowed to make shooting a video, but I will do it. Okay, maybe I'll be punished, but it's worth to show.
It's not a very big problem. Just have a
amazing
brick face like you're a tourist and just go ahead.
I already made it. I'm showing about exposing all this my shootings.
Oh, okay.
I already made this. That is beautiful, really. It's worth to watch it. I will show it, expose it later, make a video about it. Look, it's definitely before MATLAB because today we don't make like this. We put a plate. It's everything rectangular. If we see something like arches, everything round, so we are dealing with something before MATLAB, our ancient civilization. Yeah, today we build something like this with flat ceilings. But if we see something like this, it was before MATLAB, especially with this lighting device and so on. It's still ancient. We also see these flowers and so on, all decorations. It's definitely before MATLAB. Look at those columns. Look at these carvings, decorations.
Yeah, and it was all done.
No way it could be done
guys.
in 1930s by, you know, bunch of uneducated people who didn't have engineers after revolutions and so on. Definitely no way.
There is a film about the construction of Moscow subway on the official Moscow subway channel. It's like 3 hours long or something. And I watched it a couple of times, and it doesn't have any footage.
Exactly. Strange.
So it's like, what? And I even wanted to go to the museum, and you know, maybe they have some pictures there, but
sure.
It's somewhere at Moscow City underground there, so it's like not very comfortable for me to go there. But maybe when you do your video, I'll walk there and see and find some maybe evidence also there, because they often put it in museums and don't show it to the press or media because it's not interesting for them, because it doesn't have any sensations and stuff like this. But you can find very nice details on those pictures that present some evidence of some crime, or maybe, you know, hiding something. It's like very interesting.
It was like Stroika Veka construction of the 100 years of millennium or something. You know, every single newspaper were making something, writing something, some article about it, you know, every week. And there is no photos of it. And people had to sign that they refused to tell anything. They were not allowed to say anything about constructions and so on.
Yeah, by the way,
how it's possible?
the tunnel makers, actual tunnel makers, only arrived in 1936 or something.
Yeah, the
So
first one,
from the
because we didn't have
from the
production.
Donbass region, those who were like miners. So again,
Yeah.
the connection of mining and the tunnel is very evident, right? So I mean, my theory about mining and as the main cause of this liquid mud, and also
Yeah.
can be understood because if they use the communication systems to flood the area after maybe some attack or something, like they want to deactivate the area from the bacteriological or maybe radiation from the maybe some biological weapons, who knows. So they put the mud absorbs all this stuff, absorbs all
No,
the dead
I think
bodies.
it's ash. It's ash went to the atmosphere, then when it's cooled down,
I know,
clear
I know,
wind,
I
it
know,
fall down.
I know.
It's
You've
it's
told
useless to
me.
deactivate. Yes, it's useless because period полураспада, how to say, there's a dangerous
It
period of
immediately absorbs everything. It's like in the next year
yes,
you go and you don't have half of the dose
any
there.
radiation,
Any
really.
biological thing. Like you can you know about Sibirskaya Yazva, they just bury it with the clay and mud, and it's safe. It's like
Yes,
in a bunker.
they do it.
So that's what I'm
But
trying to talk
I mean
about.
radiation. People walk in the place where more than 1,000 explosions. And there is no trace of the explosion, only some stela saying that it used to be a polygon, so-called place where many explosions happened in 60s and 80s, even in 80s. And it's safe here. It was safe after 10 years. People were living in 50 kilometers. I mean, scientists who were making all these explosions, and they felt safe. So I wouldn't worry about radiation, absolutely. So it wasn't artificially; it was natural disaster.
Well,
Let's say like this.
it's
Event.
it's
I mean,
not
event.
only the fallout but post effects, right? It's also dead bodies, dead animals,
Yeah, a lot
because
of
you
them.
have to bury all this stuff, and the mud does exactly the same. It buries everything.
Yes, but it was not by manual or somebody put some mud from where actually? Where was the source of mud? It's a huge amount,
From
5-10
underground.
meters.
It's from on the ground. It's from the
Where
top.
is underground?
Everywhere you can drill
Stop,
and
clay. We're talking about clay.
the mud dries.
have
It becomes
black
exactly
soils
like
and
clay.
no, clay is
I've
something
seen it by
artificial.
myself. I've seen
Yes,
it by
but
myself. And it's called глина. Косметическая
глина,
глина. Это и есть
clay.
clay. Yes, it's clay.
Yes, but where it comes from? Where
From
is the source
underground.
deposit?
From underground.
What underground?
Everywhere you can drill and find the mud source from underground.
Yes, now because it was already layered during the mud flood. But before, I mean, now if you wanna
You
take
have the surface, right? You have the
yes,
certain landscape there,
yes,
like grass or something, trees, like people,
yes,
houses, levels like
yes,
this.
yes, yes,
Then you drill the hole
yes.
and you find maybe some source of gas,
5,
right?
10 meters.
And you
Then
mine
you
the
have
gas
clay.
for several centuries. Then you block the cell, block the
Okay.
well, and leave it. Those who control the well, they can blow the lock, and all this mud and dirt will come from underneath. Because it has a huge pressure for 100
It's
years, it
not
was locked.
clay. Atomic structure of clay. I'm sorry, Philip, but I made the research. It's totally different. It's not natural. I mean, you cannot find it. It's not like bauxite, something we use in cosmetology or use to make aluminium and so on. It's not natural. It's different structure. It's monoatomic. The only explanation is yes.
Have you heard about the cosmetic clay?
Sure.
They
Yes,
use?
but it's different. It's different to the clay we have
It
everywhere.
has some fractions, little fraction, but 90% identical to the river clay. The river clay is different because it may be flushed by the water, and so
Atomic
it's like
structure is different. Trust me.
it
I
has
researched this
maybe
issue.
some products there, but
I researched
uh,
this issue.
yeah,
Really.
I researched the mud that come from
Yes.
underneath, and it looks exactly like clay. That's the problem. When it dries out, it looks exactly like dry clay, and if it's wet, it looks like more
Okay,
gray.
who did it? What capacity, what equipment could do it in
Miners, like the
равномерно?
gas empire
How to
that
say, the
was
same way.
here, and they were
Come on.
mining
We
stuff.
had free energy. Look at this lamp. It's definitely before mud flood because we had this противовес, counterweight. How to say in English? Shishka.
Yeah, some
Вот
people
это
think
шишка.
they were fighting with each other. So if you like, have like different technologies in different countries, they probably would be using different weapons, right? And if you have somebody who controls the technology, they could be using it for warfare in the future.
Okay,
So just
one
imagine the
count.
people were using these mining for the future
Okay.
wars that are not even programmed in this current reality. So they like drilling holes everywhere underneath every city, connecting all this,
Even in your own
pressures.
country. What for?
It's not like your own or not your own. It's like the future planned stuff that they don't even know. They just doing their own job, each and every sector, and they do all these holes, mine
Even on
the
Island,
gas, or
remote
mine
Island.
oil,
Okay.
mine uranium, or mine whatever they do. Just they doing it and doing it and doing it, and then they leave the place after they done. They take all this equipment with them, so you don't have any tracks of their mining and stuff. But you
Okay.
can have only the wells.
Oh, and why we don't remember about it?
100 years passed, and those who control this information, they know in this city, over there, under this fountain, or maybe under this church, there's some type of well. And we have this information right now in Moscow. Like we have a church, it's called the Church on the Mud. It's situated in Kitai-Gorod, right near my office.
Mhm.
And like, why it's called on the mud? Because they had mud there, this cosmetic mud that I'm just trying to tell you. So they had some type of mud volcano, mud stream there. So this mud stream, there was like a controlled stream, like you have источник everywhere. You can control the source of water. You can put the valve here, and that's it. And so you can sell this mud or water or whatever you control. And at a certain
Can you
point,
imagine capacity? What amount of clay is needed to cover everything 5-10 meters?
yes, it's very
Then
easy.
deeper.
I can imagine it. We had the same case in Indonesia, like mining related case, and they had like 10 years of eruption since that mining company left, and left
Exactly.
those 10
Some smoke in
years.
the air. Yes.
No smokes there, just eruption of mud, and it's coming and coming and coming and coming. No smoking, nothing burning, just erupting. 13 villages already buried with a layer of 9 meters deep. And this mud exactly looks like gray clay that we have underneath each and every place in Russia. You dig deeper, you find this wet,
All over the place. I mean,
Gray.
not only in Russia. Everywhere.
wet gray clay. When it goes a little bit to the surface, it becomes more yellow, and it's yellow, and you have a source
Lighter and
of,
lighter, yes.
of black stuff on the top, like a little sauce, which we grew like for 100 years or maybe 150 years. That's it. So beneath this is just clay, and the wet clay is dark gray color. So this is
So it's
exactly
not
the
eruption.
mud.
Eruption has the same color, the same structure, and so on.
No, the darker the wetter. So if you have it wet, it becomes gray.
It's
If
not
you
about-
have it more less water in it, less humidity, it becomes more yellowish, reddish color. So
Yeah, I understand your position and your theory, hypothesis, and so
and
on.
it's like you can
It's
find
like-
it on the mud volcano. Mud volcanoes are located right on the hills. So it's like, why on the hills? Because it's like coming and coming and coming, and this hill is growing and all this stuff like
Exactly. It's one place you can easily, even after 400 years, you can find the source of this clay.
Yeah. So we
You
go
know
to
where
this,
it come from.
we go to this church and find out that it's on the top of this hill, and it's called the Church on the Mud. And from this source, we see the decline of the altitude, and so the buried buildings are all around there. and the center of those buildings right there near this church. And
Yes,
the
it's
same
like everywhere.
hills everywhere in Moscow, and the same
Yes,
stuff everywhere. So you can find
not on in London, the same
little
situation.
hills at the center of eruption, and then a little decline slightly as the mud was leaking, right? So it's like houses, they were bending around the houses, and you see the flow is declining toward the rivers.
But according to this narrative, mud flood, and clay would go down. But recently I went to Nepal and I saw mud flooded buildings there, over there,
Yeah, on the top of the hills.
everywhere, on
Exactly.
top of the
Yeah,
mountains.
yes, because the
It
mountains
means
are
it
also the
falls from
sources of the mud. Just imagine
how?
because this is mining place. Everybody was
What
mining.
mining? Come
Everything,
on.
everything. Metals, uranium,
Okay,
everything.
okay. And then you have to carry,
Silicon.
fly with this clue and throw it to make the same
Everywhere was mining, and
layer.
everywhere has drill holes. All those drill holes have these streams.
Where are the traces? No traces.
Everywhere,
You cannot
everywhere you
hide.
find the traces everywhere. You just haven't looked at it. I'm showing these traces every day, almost every day in my Instagram, and we have a guy named Mike Ferrero. He's also researching the connection of mining and volcanoes and all this stuff. And this is amazing because you just have to open your eyes and see it's all mining,
In
operational
old
mining.
careers, yes, canyons. It's all used to
All
be
the
career.
volcanoes are mining evidence, have the mining evidence.
Terracon, we call it terracons.
Yeah, it's called terracones, exactly. And it has the crater. If you don't cut the top of the terracone and also blow up, and you have the crater inside. That's why they cut the tops right now, so they
Not all of them, but
no most of them, the modern one, they just cut the tops because they know if people figure out, and it's visual evidence of that the volcanoes are not what we were told. So it's like the jet fuel hoax. Have you heard about the jet fuel hoax?
jet fuel.
Yeah,
No.
jet fuel, like the jet engines, jet fuel. It's like very interesting topic. So, could you please shut down the presentation so I can save the file, and we will continue with the last
You can do
episode.
it. You're welcome, sure. But let's take. I've just prepared this photo. I wanna keep
Ah,
it.
okay, well, just
Because
finish
to
the talk.
explain free energy lamps in the past. Okay. Yeah. Shut
Yeah,
it down. No problem.
Just explain, and I'll shut it after.
Yeah, but this lamp is original. I mean, it was from the beginning of the construction, and there is no way people could spend so many kilograms of pure bronze and copper instead of making something simple. You know, just it's not realistic that people, without any resources, without any equipment and so on, skills, would build something like this. They would have to cast it, you know, pour it with some metals and so on. It's too complicated, it's too difficult, and too sophisticated for just lamp.
What do officials say? Who constructed those lamps? Where did they get them? Maybe they
No
bought them from
idea.
some other countries. Who knows? What the officials
But
say
it's
about it.
before mud flood. It's ancient style.
No, it's what we try to say, but what the officials say about those lamps.
Just they build it. That's it.
So no tracks
That's
of
what I'm
where
saying.
they got.
Absolutely. I tried to search who did some stoneworks.
Yeah, I might go to that museum definitely and ask them those questions because it looks like it was not a construction operation, it was like excavation operation, and for sure it could have some design, but I think it was like abandoned for a couple of decades at least. So it could be looking
100 years.
maybe at least a couple of decades, like maybe 30,
Mm.
40 years, but maybe even more. So I mean, how much energy and material would they get to build all this beauty? So probably not. They don't
It's
have
not
any
even
material.
about materials and energy, because if you have million of people and billion of dollars and so on, you cannot take a ball and send it to the moon.
Nobody's,
need technology for
nobody's
it.
gonna give you all this material just like this. You have to pre-order
Exactly.
it for a
You
couple
need
of
technology
decades.
to cut
No, I
stones.
mean, if
you
you buy it for the money from the different countries, you also have to prepare these countries to give this order to you, like, you know,
some time and so
so
on.
you
No
can
traces
purchase it.
about it.
And
And
it's,
it's not about buying somewhere. You cannot purchase it because there was no such technology before it. You know, diamond disc
yeah,
were not available at that moment.
we probably
There is no way to cut.
if they tell us that they bought it from somewhere, we're supposed to like ask the people from that country
Yeah,
to
why
go,
they didn't build it for themselves?
yeah, to
We
go
didn't
and
see
check
anything
their
like that.
oldest subway
Exactly.
station and show us how they looked. So who was able to get this production going on and started for Soviet Union even for this money?
Yeah,
I don't know.
even huge money. It's like building star forts everywhere, made of granite. You know, there are thousands of them only in Japan. And some of them, the very first ones, they claim that they were built in 9th century, 9th. So more
Yeah,
than
the dating issue
it doesn't
is
matter,
very
but
strange because somebody's dating like it's like 15th century, somebody's saying
granite, really,
19th century. I don't know. I'm not very big fan of all this dating
it's a
stuff.
megalith. It's made granite, but you know, first star fort in USA were built in 16 something, you know, 17th century, according to official narrative. But you know, the population of USA, according to official narrative, was about 10,000 people maximum, and they all were busy with fighting with Indians, hunting, and so on, surviving actually.
Were
And
they
there is no
actually
way they
fighting
could
them?
build granite. Granite built. They were using granite to build first buildings and first star forts. But how they cut granite? Where they got it from? No way, no answer. And first lighthouse was built officially also 300 years ago. How? It's made of granite.
Well, okay. Let's just
And
finish
so,
up with this one.
yeah, thank you.